We should probably start with the market itself, which is up pretty big this morning on the latest trade announcement. And in this case, it's that the leaders of this country and of China have said, hey, why don't we take a break for the holidays? Why don't we just call a little truce and get back to this? You know, step outside, have a cigarette, and we'll get back to this sometime down the road.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, you're right. The market is up today. It was funny because I think I saw something cross my Twitter feed on Saturday about this. And I mean, the next step in my mind is, oh my God, the market is just going to go ballistic on Monday with this news. Be so happy. And I mean, of course, futures were indicating upwards of 450, 500 points on the Dow. And that's how it opened. And you look at it now as of taping, and you're looking at maybe Dow up 150 points. S&P, same basic thing, up just a little bit more than 0.5%. I think perhaps the euphoria is wearing off because the fact of the matter is, like you said, this is let's take a break. It's not a resolution, right? And it always just befuddles me as to why you see such enthusiasm on news like this when you know essentially nothing has been accomplished. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we are. And I think that if anything, maybe this buys a little bit more time in that there is not some bottom line solution or compromise that has been reached that one side's not very happy with. I think at the end of the day, for all of President Trump's what he's trying to accomplish in office, I think he still prides himself on being a deal maker. I think this is probably just part of that in figuring out how to reach the most the fairest deal for both sides involved. I'm sure something will come out of all of this, but who knows when that'll be. And so this ultimately this really is, in a nutshell, why we invest the way we do here, and doing the work up front on the businesses that we want to own, understanding that you can't avoid situations like this. If you're going to be an investor, you're going to run into situations like this, and you don't want to be making investing decisions based on these types of non-events.
Right. And you look at the comments from President Trump, President Xi, and if nothing else, headlines like this are maybe a good opportunity for investors to just pause for a second and say, well, wait a minute. What are the stocks in my portfolio that might be impacted by this? And if you're, say, a shareholder of Caterpillar, you know, if you own one of the big automakers, sort of, you know, that situation, then yeah, this is something you have to consider a little bit more closely, as opposed to if you look in your portfolio and you own, say, Home Depot or Dunkin' Brands or, you know, something like that, that's not really as exposed to this type of trade talk.
Yeah, I mean, good businesses are going to be good businesses regardless of this type of news. And I mean, it made me think back a little bit further to Alibaba and Jack Ma. And the reason why I say that is the headline that seems to come out of here is that ultimately President Trump is trying to get China to buy more American stuff to balance that trade deficit a little bit. And I get that. That makes sense, right? You kind of want some sort of equilibrium there. To that point, though, Jack Ma, one of his goals really in Alibaba in growing that business in the retail space in China was to make China more of an importer, to bring more stuff into China as opposed to sending all that stuff out. So that headline today is certainly in line with what Jack Ma's been trying to do with Alibaba all along. And I mean, Alibaba matters. Obviously, it's a tremendous company. Does a lot of business and is responsible for a lot of the money that flows through China's system. So I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think for an economy like China's to continue to evolve and advance, they're going to need to become more of an importer. And that's bringing things in from places like the United States or Brazil or Russia. And I mean, those are the countries that Ma has even called out. So that's in line with what we're seeing today. I'd like to believe they can get to that point. It's sometime or another. It's going to take some time, obviously. I tend to look at these types of headlines and think, okay, it's nice when the market pops on news like this. It doesn't make me want to do anything differently. I kind of like it when the bad news comes out and you see the market overreact to the downside, because then there is an opportunity perhaps to add a company or two to your portfolio that you don't own. In these days, you have to be ready to pull that trigger because news travels so quickly. The market adjusts a lot more quickly than it did 10, even 20 years ago.
Well, and to go back to something I've said before, one of the things I've learned in my investing lifetime is, and when I say I've learned it the hard way. Don't fall in love with a price. Don't fall in love with an exact price where you look at a stock and you say, well, I want it to fall to this point. Because to what you just said, we are seeing these types of drops, and they show up in individual stocks in the form of a 5% discount.
Yep.
And so that's really the question you just need to be ready to pull the trigger on is, okay, I like this. It's on my watch list. Well, now it's 5% cheaper. And what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to a lesson that my father taught me years ago. I mean, as a kid, and I mean, just kind of learning how stocks worked. And it was always, he says it even today. He says, listen, you're never going to buy at the bottom and sell at the top. It's just not going to happen. When you buy a stock, be ready for it to go down and be worth less than what you paid for it at some point. And then at some point down the road, you're going to sell. And then you're going to look back there later on, and that stock will probably be higher at some point too. So to your point there, yeah, don't get too married to a particular price point. Understanding the company, its general worth. The longer that you stretch that timeline out, the less that price at that moment really matters. I'm a big believer the price matters. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying buy at any price. But yeah, don't get too anchored when opportunity presents itself. Sometimes you just got to go ahead and take the plunge.